Welcome to Philanthropy SA. This is a podcast about and for the philanthropic community in San Antonio and South Texas. We introduce organizations and people who are making an impact in the community. Beneficent Financial is proud to sponsor this podcast, and it is our hope that you enjoy this conversation about the impact we can have. The goal is to edify and inspire. Now please join our host, Dan Redman.
Thank you for joining us today on Philanthropy SA. I'm your host, Dan Redman, and very pleased to be joined by my friend Jarrell Flowers. Jarrell, good to see you again.
It's good to see you, Dan.
See, most people, if you're listening, you don't know if it's good to see me or not. You're going to have to take his word for it, but that chuckle probably tells you all you need to know about actually. There is a reason we are not on video, folks. So I wanted to, Jarrell has been on in the past and has done some really cool things and gave all of old people like me a great primer on how to deal with young people in your organization. So if you didn't check that out the first time, go back and do that. Jarrell is, in addition to all the many things he does, but he runs the Rise Collective, and we're going to hear about Rise a little bit later. But in a little bit newer role, or something that you started doing more recently, was getting involved with the South Texas Alliance for Orphans and a specific program that they've got. And we've had Jennifer on and then featured that organization in the past. It's a great organization doing a lot of good things. But, why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on, at the Alliance and this program that you're doing?
Yeah, I love working with the Alliance. I just started about 3 months ago, I think. It's around 3 months ago. And, so I work specifically in a program called the Don't Go Alone program, and I am a relational manager, meaning that I help connect kids who are aging out of foster care with mentor families. And so the Alliance is really cool in that they have a holistic approach to the foster care crisis. So there is, and, if you think about kids, getting swept away in a river, there are certain prevention things that can happen at upstream, right? So for upstream, we have the Alliance Prevention Network, where we actually are, supplying, families with things that they need so that their kids don't get taken away and into the foster care system. So it's beds and all the things, right? So, to prevent that from happening. Then midstream is, obviously we're the foster care, where we're recruiting foster care families and CASA advocates and, that whole support around foster care. And then downstream is where Don't Go Alone comes in. And so those, you think about kids being in this river of foster care, downstream is where they're about to age out. And that's where we come into play. And so we try to connect them with mentor families. And if you don't mind, I'm actually going to read some of these stats because they're crazy, about what happens when kids do have mentors versus when they don't. Okay. So what happens when young adults age out of foster care? You have 71% face pregnancy within a year of aging out. 97% of youth exiting foster care face chronic poverty or worse. 50%. This is the crazy part, because you start talking about generational cycles at this point. But 50% of babies born to foster teens enter care by age 2, and that's when they don't have a mentor family. 70% of trafficking victims report a history of foster care, and 81% of young men who are aged out end up incarcerated for survival crimes. So that's like theft and things like that, right? Versus when they do have a mentor family, it's less than 5% of girls connected to a mentoring family have gotten pregnant. 98% of youth who enter the program already pregnant or parenting have maintained care and custody of their kids. So that's breaking that generational cycle. 98% is crazy to me. Yeah.
That's an awesome success number.
That's insane. And so less than 1% of boys connected to mentor families have had any interaction with the law, and the stats trend in that direction, right? Overwhelmingly positive versus overwhelmingly negative. And so that's why I've always had a love for young adults and teens. I was in youth ministry coming up, and I was sharing with you earlier, I actually had foster kids who were in my youth group at the time totally unaware of the crisis and everything. And I was just being there, as support as a youth pastor. And I still keep in contact with some of those kids. They are on fire for the Lord. They're raising families. They're doing awesome, And so for me to step into this role and be more intentional about connecting kids with mentor families is huge. So I love it. I feel like God kind of prepared me for this.
Yep. No, that's awesome. And those numbers are stark. And when you mentioned earlier foster care crisis, of course, I think a lot of us go to this notion that there are people in need of, foster families, and there are, and that kind of thing. But I don't think there's a near enough attention paid to the fact that when people age out of foster care, that here they are, they're 18 years old, and congratulations, the state says, you're an adult, you're done. We're not going to pay your foster care family any more money, and you're on your own.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really wild because, the message that a lot of these teens are getting once they get to that place of aging out is that nobody's wanted you. You know what I mean? And that is crazy. Nobody should ever feel that way, especially with the church being in the earth and us called to be the family of God that cares for widows and orphans, and that, like, it should not, people should never have to get to that place. But unfortunately, we do. We're here, and the call is for the church to actually step up and be the church that practices true religion, right? It's caring for orphans and widows and, that population where the world turns a blind eye and it says, hey, you're not useful to our society, so therefore we're not going to treat you as you're valuable. The church steps in and says, hey, like, we love you because you're made in the image of God, and regardless of your circumstances. And so, it's beautiful. I think of, the scripture that talks about God turning the hearts of the fathers to the sons and the hearts of the sons to the fathers. This is exactly what the Don't Go Alone program is doing. It's taking people who are more seasoned, they have margin in their life to actually care for these young adults. And the young adults that I'm meeting with on a weekly basis and connecting with on a weekly basis, they actually want a family. You know what I mean? Sure. And they want to belong. And so it's really cool. It's really cool to make that connection and to see God turn hearts of fathers to sons and sons to fathers and mothers to daughters and daughters to mothers. It's really cool.
No, that is awesome. And I mean, I know Jennifer has quoted this many times in many different venues, but I know that if every church in San Antonio, if just one family in each of those churches would step up and adopt a foster child, the foster care system in San Antonio would go away. Yeah. There would be no need for foster care as we know it. I mean, the need would still be there because there'd be people coming into the system. But the point of having people who go all the way through foster care and then age out, never having been adopted, never having had that happen, would not be the case. Yeah. So what I'd love for you to talk about is a little bit about the mentor program and how it's different than traditional, foster care.
Yeah. So with the mentor program, what's really cool is that a lot of our recruiting happens in churches. Right. So we are actively going to churches and we're saying, hey, here's the need. Here are the kids, and we need the church to step up. Right. And so what happens is we do have what we call like mentor family training. So we have training where people who are interested in this actually go through a training process, and it's a training process that helps us to be trauma informed. So there's a lot of kids, obviously, they have crazy backgrounds and crazy stories. And so understanding what it looks like to engage a person who has experienced trauma is huge, right? So we have that training for them. Of course, they have background checks. We have a process of certification. And then after that, like, we start, so our mentor families, most of them come from churches, right? The kids that we are servicing, like, they come from all different kind of places, but specifically from community partners. So, CPS and all of these places, right? We go to docket meetings. So there's a college bound docket, and there's other, docket meetings that we go to. And so we get like a list of kids, and then we get referrals from our community partners. And so we have these two pools of people, right? The mentor families and the mentees, the prospective young adults. And our job is to pray over these profiles. They'll all fill out a profile. And our job is to pray over that and say, God, who is the best match for this young adult? So we do that. And it's just cool to see how God sovereignly works through that matching process is amazing. And so that's how we do that. And it's differing from foster care in the sense that like we're really trying to be spirit led when it comes to these, to these matches, and trying to introduce good news in a tangible way, right? We can preach and preach the gospel and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes down to this kid who's aging out of foster care, good news to that kid means that they actually have a family and that they can escape being one of these statistics,
Now, what is the commitment that the mentors are making? Is it you're going to open your home to this young adult? Is it what is it that you're committing to do as a mentor?
Yeah. So we say that we are connecting these young adults to permanent mentor families. And so there's not a commitment to like care for the person like financially. We're not saying, hey, you got to be there for this person financially. You have to open up your home. We're not saying that, because that can kind of lean towards dependency. And we want the young adults to actually be young adults and start taking responsibility, even though it's hard and they're walking through challenges that make them kind of averse to anything hard, but the mentor family is there saying, hey, I'm going to coach you and I'm going to show you what healthy family looks like. And, if the mentor family feels led to help in those ways, that's between them and God. We're just like, that's once you open that, it's it's hard to close. And so you just got to go in with your eyes wide open. But yeah, I guess the commitment is we're not just here as a program. We're going to be here as your family for the long haul.
Yeah.
Like that's the commitment.
And so the people who are going to this program, and you used the terminology kids earlier, but as, guys of a certain age, right? We think of kids.
Yeah.
You're talking about adults.
They are young adults. Yeah. We specifically serve.
They're 18 and up. They've aged out of foster.
Specifically 18 to 25 year olds. Those are the target people that we're going for. We're trying to serve that population. Yeah.
And that's because once you're 25, you should be responsible for yourself. Okay. So any parents of any kids that are over age 25 that want to talk to their kids about that, we'll have a separate show about that. But
come on. Separate show. Amen to the separate show.
So anyway, but no, so this is just one of the programs. And of course, by the time people get to this part of the foster care, river, as you were describing it, they're coming out that other side and aging out. This means they never got adopted, and those types of things. But the organization there at the Alliance does a great job of dealing with the upstream issues and all of that. But even so, and, not giving any names and that type of thing, but you were telling me a story earlier today about a young lady who is like just very headstrong and kind of like, no, I'm going to do this my way and all that kind of thing. And then, but they get, the cycle continues when that happens sometimes, right?
Yeah. I mean, it really is hard because, for a person to receive help, they have to actually want that. Right. And so a person like this young lady that I was talking about, she has been kind of on her own and actually shouldering the weight of her family. She has a newborn and she's just been shouldering that. So it's like, some of it's like a safety mechanism too. It's just like, okay, we're trying to introduce new people that can potentially help you. And so I don't know her whole story, but what I do know of it, I could understand why she doesn't want to trust people.
Sure.
And so, she would probably think that people are saying that they want to help, but there's some ulterior motive or there's some kind of hidden motive or whatever, And so a lot of that, I have to leave that in the hands of the Holy Spirit and also be texting and saying, hey, just how are you doing? What's going on? How's the baby? All of that kind of stuff. And that's what I'm doing right now. And I'm really praying, it really is prayer. I'm like, Lord, I pray that she soften her heart and let her trust in people again and believe, that kind of thing, because it really is I can't make her do anything, even though I know how beneficial it would be for her. But
well, yeah. And I mean, if you think about it from their perspective, I mean, this goes back to, they've had relationships that go back to their birth parents, and it being not good.
Yeah.
Like so not good that the state stepped in and said, hey, you can't be here anymore, or they were abandoned or whatever it was. And so, to overcome that, and then years in the foster care system, if they never got picked up to be adopted and that kind of thing, they've just experienced that rejection on a recurring basis, on a regularly recurring basis. They've been told, no, you're not, we're not going to bring you into our family kind of thing.
Yeah. And, so with the mentor families, we actually have a thread on GroupMe, and sometimes I'll just throw in some resources in there. And one of the things that I ran across was this, it was a resource on grief, right? And how to deal with grief and the 5 stages of grief. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's, these kids are grieving all the time, right? I just heard one story of this child who is in care since she was born. And from that time to the time that she aged out, she was in 100 different placements.
Oh my goodness.
Imagine that. Imagine being taken from one place to the next. The instability that creates in your own soul of just not knowing and constantly being anxious, and then at some point you just don't even attach anymore emotionally because it would just hurt too much, and you're going to be moved, it's just like, what in the world? And so, so helping people who are going through that level of trauma, it's difficult. And so a lot of it is spiritual, Dan. It's like, man, we got to, in addition to, providing the resources and everything, it's like, man, we also got to pray. Like,
absolutely.
We got to pray for that God turn hearts and heal hearts and mend hearts and use the church to be the answer that they're praying,
Absolutely. To be those hands and feet.
Yeah.
So if somebody is moved by this and wants to reach out to find out more about the South Texas Alliance in general, or specifically this program, where should they go?
Yeah. I mean, so the Alliance does have a website. It's Alliance, 4, the word orphans.org, alliance4orphans.org. And there's a tab that has the Don't Go Alone programs, got all the, all of the stats that I just mentioned. Ways to connect, serve, give, however you want to do that. There's a lot of ways to get involved.
Yeah. And you can see a picture of Jarrell and his lovely family.
Come on somebody. My wife and 3 girls, we in there representing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So by all means, check out that and see how you can get involved. Now, that's one of the many things that Jarrell does. And so he's also been involved with the Rise movement. And that's I know that's, from an organizational perspective, your baby. I don't know your official title. Is it CEO, executive director?
Executive director,
Grand Poobah, whatever. But
I might add that one.
There you go. I like that one.
Spell Poobah.
We are we're in South Texas, so we can just call you El Jefe.
Right.
So that'll work. So tell us about what's going on in the Rise movement. I know you got kind of 3 things that we were talking about earlier, and I'm like, we need to make sure people know about this.
Yeah, man. Thank you for that, man. So if you're not familiar with the Rise movement, again, we have a website for that, risemovement.co, not .com, .co. And our mission statement is to empower creatives to transform community through art and the gospel. Long story short, my story with Rise started for a personal need for community, and I just did not have that. And so the enemy started really attacking me, especially in my mental health. And it got to a point to where after, I had come off this extensive tour where I was out, about 100 days, And then I was also trying to juggle my job at the church, and I just got burned out, did not have any friends. And I told my wife that, and she was actually the one that told me, hey, Jarrell, I think you have a lot of coworkers, and you don't really have a lot of friends, people that you can actually call your friends. And so I brought some creative friends over to the house. It was a life-giving experience for me. And so I put it online, and that's how things started. I mean, we started having monthly gatherings, and then from there, community started springing up out of that. And so we have 7 communities here in the city. We have a network of communities that are, in different cities and stuff like that. And it's really cool to see that happening. And we've been very intentional about having the community aspect. And that's been kind of our main thing, is just making sure that creatives don't feel alone. And this year has been a year of a lot of clarity and alignment for us. And so, I am by nature, I am not a pastoral type of person. I am like, hey, I'm a very prophetic. Hey, let's go out and reach the world and tell the world, about Jesus, what thus saith the Lord, all that kind of stuff. And so, it was very hard for me to keep that pastoral level of care that was needed in our organization. So we decided to pivot with some of that because we knew it was needed. That was why I started Rise to begin with. And so we're really leaning on the church now to be that community for creatives. And so I go to Community Bible Church. We're going to be launching small groups for creatives through Community Bible Church. And so that is one big pivot for us. And that frees me to be what God has called me to be, which is a communicator. And so we want to provide a platform for these artists who are coming out of our community. And it's cool. So we have a hip hop collective. We have a worship collective. We've got photographers and videographers. They're in a group. And we've got, like I said, about 7 different communities here in the city. And so what I'm focusing on this year is actually creating a platform for them. And so, yeah, that's what we're doing. And so we're releasing music, we're releasing videos, we're releasing a lot of content this year. That is the plan.
And speaking of releasing music and that type of thing, you've got a new song coming out here,
yes,
January 3rd.
Let's go.
And what's that in conjunction? That's in conjunction with something out of CBC as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, it's inspired by Pastor Ed. So Pastor Ed Newton came out with a book called Why Not You? And really, man, that was before it was a book, it was actually a sermon series at the church. And so just recently in the past 3-4 months, like that message has really stirred my heart, just to be everything that God has called me to be, and I think for a long time I was trying to be something that I thought people needed me to be and not who God has actually wired me and gifted me to be. And so, I know I have a lot of talent and I know I have a lot of abilities, but I think I was kind of like self-sabotaging myself because I was saying, well, I need to be this because these people need me and they need community and they need this and that. And this message just kept on coming up. Why not you? Like God is going to use somebody. Why not you? And so, it started stirring, and then the book came out, and I'm like, man. Then I started seeing it other places too, this whole why not you message. I went to Pastor Ed's book release, and I heard how he got the message. Somebody shared that with him, and it impacted his life. And it's just like this chain reaction, man, where it's a word for right now, right? For believers to actually believe in what God has said about them, to believe in the fact that he's actually called them and chosen them, prepared them for good works before the foundation of the earth. Like that is God's gift that he's given to us, and we shouldn't be burying those talents. And so, yeah, I wrote a song about it, and I'm just adding, I call it adding my amen to the word that's already out there. So,
yeah. So, so the name of the song is
Why Not You? Inspired by Pastor Ed Newton.
There we go. Okay. Well, we're going to hear it for a minute here. I'm going to give a little clip. This is just a prequel. It's not released until January 3rd. You're hearing it here first, folks.
Let's go.
Let's go ahead and roll.
He said, who made you? Who made you? Who fashioned you for good works when I created you? Who called you and who saved you? That trauma tried it, but it couldn't overtake you. Who chose you when nobody noticed you? And who fought for you, came and made a way for you? That situation tried to shape you and break you, but what you thought would break you turned to breakthrough. So why not you? Hey, every loss is a lesson. Survive and now you're blessed to be a blessing. So why not you? Hey, why don't you use that gift from heaven? There ain't no better time than the present. So why not you? Why stay up in that pit feeling sorry when everyone's invited to this party? So why not you? Hey, go out and tell everybody that God is gonna use somebody. So why not you?
Okay. Thanks, Jarrell. That is awesome. So that is very empowering. I mean, I think that message of why not you?
Yeah.
Or why not us? Or, you know, this is kind of, and that really feeds into what we were talking about earlier in terms of, you know, why aren't you that person that can help, you know, somebody aging out of foster care or helping someone who's in foster care have their forever home? And those kinds of things. So that kind of feeds in. But
hey, that was good, Dan. I'm just going to say you like tied a whole bow on that thing. This is not your first rodeo.
You're not the only guy with talent here. I'm just saying, you know, I'm not as good looking, but you know, I'm just saying.
Okay. You said it, not me.
But the interesting thing about this, because now I want to kind of pivot to something else you and I have spoken about off air in the past, which is the notion of, you know, nonprofits and getting involved in what's known as social enterprise.
Yeah.
And so this music, first of all, where are people going to be able to find this song?
Yeah. So pre-save, you can pre-save on Spotify, Apple Music, all that kind of stuff too. So you look up Jarrell and all the pre-save stuff will be there. It's already posted.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So you'll pre-save it and then it'll be available in your downloads on January 3rd. Okay.
Yep.
And so the music itself though, this is, you know, traditional and I mean, we know the economics of the music industry. We know how rich you guys get off of these downloads.
Right.
For those who
pennies on the dollar.
If you could see eye rolls on audio, Jarrell just did one. So that's what we're looking at here. But all kidding aside, I mean, this is something that is going to be used to support Rise, you know, in those types of things.
Yes.
But it's, you know, traditional music. So talk to me a little bit about, you know, as you have looked at funding streams for Rise and how to do this, kind of what has made you, and although it wasn't, you know, you had the, the festival.
Yes.
The festival last year and that type of thing. Talk about some of the things that Rise is doing in that arena of, you know, raising funds through something that somebody else would just consider traditional, you know, media marketing.
Yeah, I think for us, it really is coming out of this conviction of how are we being good news to our city. And as I'm, you know, talking with people and as I'm working with different organizations in the city, or even as I'm talking to young adults, right, with the Alliance, there is this overarching theme of poverty. Like, we just don't have enough to do X, Y, Z, right? And so, especially in the city, when I think about the arts culture in our city, you can feel that. You can feel that, we want to do this, but there's not enough money to you know? And so, we started off as a nonprofit because, I came I came from the church world, the nonprofit sector, and if there was money that you needed to do a bake sale, and you got to do the things in order to get the money. And so, and it was really like a lot of it was putting your plea out there and asking for money because, hey, you've got this great cause and all of that. But in being good news to our community, the conviction for us is like, okay, we've got to become something that generates revenue, right? And so that's why we decided to do the festival. Like, we don't want to be another person who's just asking, this big pool of donors, like, hey, just give us some money, because there's thousands and thousands of other nonprofits that are doing that, right? And so at some point, the pool runs dry, right? And so it's like, okay, so how, instead of being someone who's consuming resources, how do we create wealth? And so, you see that in Deuteronomy. He's like, I've given you the power to gain wealth so that you can establish my covenant on the earth. And so it's like, okay, how do we create wealth? How do we create opportunities? And so the festival was a part of that. That is our physical platform. So where, when we did the festival, we had, musicians, and everybody who hit the stage, they were paid, right? And so we're getting the message out there. That's awesome. But we're also paying artists, which is huge, right? And then you also have we had vendors, we had art vendors, and they, some of them made thousands of dollars that day. We had food vendors. And so it was this idea where we generated capital for people. And it was over $60,000 that was generated, and poured back into the artists of our city. And so that's amazing. That's our physical platform. We want to create a digital platform as well. So we want music to be made. And yeah, it does take a long time to actually generate that revenue. Like, not everybody goes viral. And so you have to do you have to do the work and all of that. But we want to create that for our community as well. And I think, Jesus says, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He's anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor, to preach the good news to the poor. And so I'm like, man, if that word had some skin on it, what would it look like in the arts community of our city? And that's what we want to be. So we're trying to create some capital. We're trying to create wealth, so that people can actually like believe again. You know what I mean? Like, we want them to believe in who God's called them to be, and know that they don't have to wait for handouts. They can actually create something that's awesome, and that people will pay for, So.
And so for those who don't know, when you go to a Spotify or an iTunes and download something, that artist does get a teeny tiny piece of that.
Yeah. It really is like a diversified stream of income kind of thing. So like, yeah, you don't make a lot of money off the music, but like, for me, my biggest income stream has been like actual concerts, right? So it's actual concerts, and then merch also, that's another stream of income. And then of course now you're able to monetize YouTube, and so there's different streams of income even on the digital aspect of things. There's services that you can provide. So my wife and I have a creative agency, and we do spoken word videos. That's how I got connected to the Alliance, actually. I did, they paid for a video from our organization. Yeah. And so, there's a whole lot of diverse streams of income. And so we have to educate people on that aspect too. That you're probably not just going to make your whole entire living off of just the music. It's possible. God can do anything. but at the same time, it's like there's a diversified like stream of income that you have to start thinking as an entrepreneur, right? In the music industry. And so, yeah.
No, there's a lot there. So organizations that, are looking for revenue streams when we've seen cutbacks in government programs and that type of thing, definitely need to consider integrating a component of social enterprise and whether or not, and what makes sense there. And for most programs that I've had history with, or have, gotten to know a little bit, there's almost always some synergies with their core programs anyway. In other words, in your case with Rise, you have a stable of artists that are looking for those, venues and that opportunity and that type of thing. Or, it could be a client base of people that can provide labor for a social enterprise that's going to be going and doing those types of things. So that's all stuff that organizations can do. And I appreciate you mentioning that and being able to do that. So as we're wrapping up, anything else you want to make sure we talk about before we go?
Man, thank you for the opportunity. This is really cool. It was really cool to catch up with you earlier, and then just by God's providence, able to share some of this stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah. No, this was a complete serendipitous opportunity to have Jarrell back on the show, and we can tell that story on another day. But we'll just suffice it to say there was a whole other plan for today's show, and this came about, and the only person happier than me and you is my producer, Catherine. So
look at that smile over
there.
Yeah,
she is over here chuckling,
from
and
ear
that
to
is,
ear.
the worst part is that's the most I've made her laugh in, the couple of years of doing this. And I have tried, my man. I mean, this is there amazing. It goes. There it goes. Okay. So thank you for joining us today, Jarrell. Always good to see you.
Yes.
It is an honor and a privilege to count you as a friend, and look forward to watching this song blow up. And so anybody who's got connections with, the radio industry, listen to this song and download it and send it to your friends and let them play it. So, but we'll monitor that progress as the year progresses.
Yes.
So, thanks for joining us on behalf of Philanthropy SA. This is Dan Redman reminding you to do well so you can do good.
Thank you for joining us at Philanthropy SA. We hope you found something to inspire you during today's conversation. If you know organizations and people who are making an impact in the community, we would love to hear about it. Until next time, do well so you can do good.